Well, the 2025 NBA draft is set for June 25th and 26th at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. So the countdown is on. 2 days away until some of the top prospects have their dreams come true. But who are some of the overrated and underrated prospects in this year's 2025 NBA draft? Lucky for us, we have the answer because Mackenzie Brooks is with us on CBS Sports HQ. We're going to start with the overrated prospects in this year's draft. But first, I want you to kind of set the stage for everybody on how you came to get some of these answers.
Right. So the same way the sports line model always tries to mock and copy odds makers and get, in their heads and see how they're working their algorithms, we kind of do the same thing with the NFL draft and the NBA draft, where we're like, what does the front office look for? What do they prioritize? Then we go back and we find, comps to a lot of these guys from the past 5 years. How did those guys with similar shooting efficiency measurements, how did they turn out? Because we know that NBA front offices are also doing those same things and same moves. So we're able to see who could potentially have success based off past guys and who maybe is a little overrated is a strong word, but I guess that's what we're going to call it here.
So history seems to play a large role here.
Right.
All right, let's go ahead and roll through some of the overrated prospects in this year's draft.
So again, overrated is a harsh word. The thing with it's a lot of boom or bust, right? Okay. So Derek Queen is a player that a lot of people are high on. Obviously, he was so fun to watch in the draft here. It's really about which team he gets drafted to, right? If somebody wants him to be a true 5 defensively, be a rim protector, they're in trouble, right? I mean, he'll be a true 5, a true center offensively, but if that's what you're asking of him defensively, that's going to be a problem. You look at his raw stats, sure, he's putting up great rebounding numbers, but as far as when they went deep in that tournament, I mean, they were getting wrecked on the boards, and he should have been a big reason that they weren't. So I think that's a concern for teams here. So his floor could be a guy like Sengun, but he could also be as good as a guy like Jalen Williams here. So hard to tell there. Jeremiah Fears, this is a guy with a very similar comp and stats to Isaiah Collier, which is kind of the red flag that we're looking at because his assist to turnover ratio is quite terrifying. And if Jeremiah Fears is to have any similar stats to that, that's not a great place to be. You look at the guys who tested in the lottery, his shooting efficiency really wasn't that great relative to a lot of those other lottery guys. So I think front offices will look at that. They'll look at him having similar measurables to a guy like Isaiah Collier, and they might think maybe he's going to fall. I will say for him, though, he is young, so you have this massive upside. But sometimes teams aren't necessarily looking for this raw potential upside kind of guy.
Overrated, used loosely here, I guess we can say, right? That's a nice way to put it. Let's go ahead and get to the underrated players in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few that we like here. I think Ryan Kalkbrenner, he's a guy we talked about a lot during March Madness as well. I think when you get later into that round one, right, the 20s, the 30s, these are conference finals contenders. Guys not looking for, the 18-year-old that's going to be their franchise player. You're really just looking for a solid guy and a solid big here. And Ryan Kalkbrenner has shown that not only is he great defensively, but he also has really worked on his 3-ball. If you want to take him to somewhere like the Thunder, they could put him in the G League for a year to develop the 3-shot even more. And he's a guy that you can just have on your roster solidly, and he'll be in this league for 10 to 15 years. So again, once you get later into that draft, you'll see teams not necessarily looking for this giant high ceiling. Sometimes they're just looking for that high floor. And then you go to a guy like Cedric Coward, who obviously did not play a lot. We had a small sample size of 6 games last year, but he has freakishly similar measurables and shooting efficiency to a guy like Jalen Williams, who just won the NBA Finals and part of one of maybe the greatest teams in NBA history. So having that type of momentum and that being your lookalike, your copycat, right after the NBA Finals, that just gives me the feeling that maybe these front offices could see him having a lot of more potential here.
This is a hard job to really label a top prospect, overrated or underrated. Right. Is any of this based off of teams' needs in the draft as well?
Relative to the NFL draft, it's more about just getting the best player, especially because you see a lot of free agency happening after the draft. The NFL, they kind of know what they need more. This is more about getting the best player with the best potential here.
All right, good to know. Well, lastly here, as our sports line betting analyst, you got to give us some of the best bets come Wednesday night.
So I know, a lot of books are different, a lot of states are different. Any version of getting Kalkbrenner to go in that first round, or maybe going above pick 30, in the late 30s as well, you can find him to go in round 1. I think that's a solid bet. Again, just these really championship contending teams that don't need this massive boomer bust guy, I think they're going to be willing to go for a safe bet like Kalkbrenner.
Sounds good to me. Mackenzie Brooks from Sportsline joining us live here on CBS Sports HQ for more on how to approach NBA draft night on Wednesday. Scan that QR code on your screen and watch the Early Edge podcast. It's a daily Sportsline betting podcast. You don't want to miss it.